So we are going to now jump into our financial planning topic, or what we call our financial 15. And today is more common retirement mistakes. Again, that is not more common. It's more common retirement mistakes, because I did a video like this just a few months ago. I think it was back in March, but there are other things that have come up. I thought it was good to address it again. So this is part one in a 4-part series. We're going to talk about, let's see if I can remember. We're going to talk about expenses today. We're going to talk about medical costs. And I'm going to touch on some of these things today, and you'll see an asterisk next to those things. And that just means we're going to have a discussion about it later on. So this is part 1 of 4. So we're going to talk about expenses today. We're going to talk about medical expenses. We're going to talk about IRMA. That's a big one, income-related monthly adjustment amounts. And we're going to talk about taxes. And these are things that your financial planner or financial advisor might be missing or might be wrong about. I do hear this. I have the opportunity to coach financial advisors all around the country, and often they're surprised when I bring these things to their attention and they say, oh my gosh, I should have been thinking about that. And listen, that's okay. Better to have a financial advisor that takes the time and says, oh my gosh, rather than someone who never reaches out to learn about these things, doesn't engage an organization like the Ed Slack group, the Power Zero group, or study groups that we have to make ourselves better. Some people just stand out there on the island and say, this is the way I've always done it. Everything will work out just fine. And they're missing a lot. So the first thing is, you can see here, and I'm going to change my pad here so that I'm looking down. You're going to see me look down. I'm just drawing on this. Okay. Don't use the 4% rule. So if you attend the class, or if you've attended classes before, you've heard me talk about this 4% rule. This 4% rule was put together by a financial advisor. His last name is Bengen. And he basically said, very generally said, if you don't draw more than 4% of your portfolio, given certain circumstances, then you should not outlive your money. And that their circumstances are the growth of your stock value, the growth of your bond values, the allocation, how it's situated, the 60-40, 65-35, etc. But that rule is really, really broken, and you shouldn't use that because, first of all, it should be adjusted for inflation. And there's just a lot of things that can go wrong just by saying, I've got $1 million. I'm going to draw $40,000 a year. There's just a lot that can go wrong with that. So don't use the 4% rule. You want and that's called a withdrawal rate, 4% withdrawal rate, like how much you can withdraw from your portfolio. And folks, that's all over the internet, by the way, this 4% rule, but you want your own withdrawal rate. So you want to come up with your own withdrawal rate. And I'm going to tell you a secret. The withdrawal rate really it's not that it doesn't matter, but you can't set a static withdrawal rate. I'm trying not to get into this too much, but withdrawal rates don't happen like this. So if you retire at 65 and say you die at 95, and in this example, 4%, and in fact, Benjamin says it should go up every year with inflation. But that's not really true either. What typically happens is this. Your withdrawal rate will start higher, right? So your withdrawal rate just may end up being 4%. Who knows? So let's use that amount. But you've got to determine, and we're going to talk about this, through your exploration of your expenses, you have to determine what your withdrawal rate is. But let's say it starts at 4%. Let's call it here. And it holds there for 5 years. So now you're 70 years old. It could dip down. Why could it dip down? Well, maybe in the beginning of your retirement, you might want to do things. You might want to travel more. You might want to, we're going to talk about some of these things, but you might want to buy some things, boats, RVs, vacation homes. So your withdrawal rate could be higher, and then you could slow down a little bit, right? And so it could come down. And that might stay that way for, say, 10 years. And this is just an example, folks. But inevitably, it tends to creep up again. This withdrawal rate tends to increase. And sometimes it goes very, very high by the time you're no longer here. And why might that be? This kind of upside down bell curve is, it's so shaky, upside down bell curve. This is often due to fun, and planning, because we specialize in tax efficient planning. And when people meet us, they might say, okay, well, I'm planning to spend X on my retirement expenses. And we say, well, what if you spent a little bit more in the beginning to pay for your taxes now, so you don't have to pay tax in the future? And we're adding to those expenses in the beginning. So in the beginning, it might be fun and planning. And then in this section, this second part here, and who knows? I mean, you may not slow down at 70. You might not slow down until 75 or 85. There's plenty of people still having fun at age 85. But this could be kind of the I really don't like this, but people talk about go, no go, slow go periods of retirement, but this could be the slow down, let's call it. Still having fun, but you've spent your money on your tax, so now those expenses are real low. You're now collecting your Social Security, so your withdrawal rate on your expenses is lower, so that's come down. So now maybe it started at 4%, and now maybe it's 2%. And this period in your 70s, 75, 80, 85 years old, but then suddenly it spikes up here, and it could go back to 4, 5, 6, 7, and we see that almost solely due to medical. And we're going to talk about that as well. So don't use the 4% rule. Use your own rule. Figure out your own withdrawal rate, and you have to develop that. And that's what you work with, and you should review it every single year and update it. So what kind of expenses are we talking about? Well, first we're talking about essential expenses. So these are things that you must have during your retirement. And I'm going to come back to that. So the essential expenses, I went through, and I think I got them all, but there could be some others, and we're going to talk about how we identify those others. And what's essential to me might be different than what's essential to you, frankly. And that's part of the problem too, is that, what's not on this list: housing, food, transportation, utilities, healthcare, taxes, entertainment, other, pet care. Pet care is a big one. I see people spend thousands of dollars a year in pet care, and I think we're one of them, right? So my wife and I, we have a couple dogs. We have 6 chickens. We have, there's a rabbit in the house. And so we spend money on pet care. And that should, no kidding, that needs to be part of your calculation, because it's not uncommon to see people spend thousands of dollars a year, $5,000 a year or more on pet care. And some of you might be nodding your head saying, oh, that seems right. And some of you might be saying, what? That's crazy. But that is just an example. And that might be essential to you, right? Pets are a big part of your life, whatever. But the normal ones are housing, food, transportation, utilities, healthcare, and that has an asterisk on it because we're going to have a whole section about healthcare. So I'm going to really try not to go off too much about that. And we have expected healthcare expenses. Hey, I know what my planned expenses are. And then we have unexpected healthcare expenses, and we're going to talk more in detail about that in a couple of weeks. Well, then, folks, we have taxes. We have property taxes and income taxes. Not only federal income tax, but state and local income taxes, potentially. There are different rules depending on where you live regarding state and local tax. But it's really hard to, without proper planning, avoid that federal tax, and we're gonna talk about that in depth a couple of weeks. And then you have entertainment. People forget about this one because I'll talk to people on the phone or in a introductory meeting or an introductory or a first start in the planning meeting, and they'll say, I need to spend about $6,000 a month, or $8,000 a month, or $10,000 a month, or whatever their number is. And I'll say, does that include fun? They'll say, what do you mean? Does that include going to dinner, going to movies, travel? And they'll say, no, you know what? I hadn't thought about that. I just tallied up what our basic bills are and figured it out from there. Well, you don't want to just, most people don't want to just live in, be sheltered in their home during retirement. They want to enjoy themselves and do fun things, entertainment and fun. And I would argue that they're essential. That's essential part of retirement. It's not just food, fuel, or food, water, and shelter. It's everything that life includes and is involved in living a fulfilled life. So I would argue that these are essential expenses. So you want to include that. And it's not uncommon, folks, for people, and I'm going to talk about this in a bit. Actually, I'm going to let myself talk about it then. So you have your essential expenses, and then you have your aspirational expenses. Well, travel and vacation. So you might, the average we see for travel is about $10,000 a year and for a married couple, right? For a couple who enters retirement together. So you can cut that in half for an individual, maybe. But we see about $10,000 a year, but it's not uncommon to see $35,000 to $40,000 a year of planned retirement expenses in the first few years of retirement. And we typically plan these out until age 85. Now, I'm going to tell you that most people don't travel that heavily until age 85, but there are some out there who do. So that's important. So you want to have an idea of how much you're going to spend for travel. And don't worry about, inflation is a cost, but a good financial planner should be saying to you, give me the cost of things today. We're going to adjust the inflation. That's not something that you should be concerning yourself with. Gifting. Gifting to family and friends, or gifting to charity. So after all of your needs are taken care of, and that's important, I don't want to tell you how to do your business, but be careful not to focus on gifting before you focus on your own needs. That does happen. It may seem very logical and normal to you to say, well, of course we want it before we give it to anything to anyone else. But some people are very, very giving, and that comes first, and that can get them in, put them in difficult situations. And also, we're going to talk about this in shock expenses, but sometimes family can get more expensive than we think it's going to be. But we have these aspirational expenses, and that's family, friends, gifting, travel, maybe a vacation home. You might want to buy a house in, a lot of people are avoiding Florida now because of the cost of insurance, but it could be anywhere, folks. We're gonna have a trip to Arizona in a few months. I am certain I'm going to be looking at the real estate situation in Arizona because that's just what I always do. But so it could be just about anywhere, and that could be an aspiration for you. Is, hey, I'd love to have a vacation home. I'd love to have it here. I'd love to have 2 or 3 or just 1, or rent vacation homes. I don't know. You could also want a boat or an RV. I see RVs a lot. I don't see many boats, but many, many people come into us when they come in to speak to us, and they talk about, we love to buy an RV, and travel around the country and spend time out on the road. And that is a really common goal for folks. So not only, let's just recap here. Not only your essential expenses, but also your aspirational expenses. Don't forget those in your planning, and don't let the person you're working with forget those either.